So here we go. Let's imagine we've got 6.124 times 10 to the 8th plus 1.2 times 10 to the 7th. So we want to add these numbers, and they're both in scientific notation. Notice these numbers do not have the same power of 10. The first thing we have to do is write them both with the same power of 10. This number, this 10 to the 8th, means that this is a larger number than 1.2 times 10 to the 7th. So in order to figure out just how close these are in size, the first thing we have to do is write them with the same power of 10. And cutting off a future problem, we will always choose the larger power. So we're going to write all the numbers with the same power of 10 using the largest power of 10 from all the numbers. So here we have 10 to the 8th, 10 to the 7th. 10 to the 8th is larger. So we're going to write this number with the power of 10 to the 8th. So we're going to write this as times 10 to the 8th. And then what do we have to do to this? Well, once again, 10 to the 7th to 10 to the 8th, if we're increasing that by 1 power of 10, we have to decrease that by 1 power of 10 in order for the product to be the same. So we have to decrease this by 1 power of 10, meaning we have to move the decimal point to the left one place. So 0.12. So 1.2 times 10 to the 7th is the same as 0.12 times 10 to the 8th. Okay? Increasing this, decreasing this. Now, we have 6.124 times 10 to the 8th plus 0.12 times 10 to the 8th. We can factor off that power of 10 to the 8th. So here we've got 6.124 plus 0.12 times 10 to the 8th. Both of them times 10 to the 8th. Now we've got just these numbers that we need to add together. And now we can go back to the way of adding numbers we talked about before. Let's line these up, 0.12, and add them up. Again, we don't know what this column is. We don't know here, so we cannot write this value. We know it's 4, which is less than 5, so we'll just round it down. We'll just drop it off. So 2 plus 2, 4. 1 plus 1, 2. 6. 6.24. So our final result, 6.24 times, and then don't forget, 10 to the 8th. And there we go. There is our final result. So, when adding or subtracting numbers in scientific notation, don't forget the first step is you've got to write both numbers with the same power of 10. You might just think, well, I can just put them right into my calculator and that'll take care of it for me. It will take care of moving the correct decimal place here, but it will not tell you how many significant figures you need to keep. So going through this, if you really need to make sure that you are keeping the correct number of significant figures, you might need to go through these steps to make sure that you get it with exactly the correct number of sig figs. Now, I will tell you something, and this is primarily directed to those people that are actually in my class, meaning that they're the ones that have to take my quizzes and exams and things like that. Unless I am asking you a question specifically about the appropriate number of significant figures, so I'm asking you how many sig figs does this number have, or what's the result of this particular calculation using the correct number of sig figs, you do need to go through these steps. But if I'm not asking that kind of question, for the rest of the semester, I will almost the entire time use 3 significant figures. So any exam or quiz or something like that, except for something directly asking about the number of significant figures or a calculation about significant figures, if you give a final answer with 3 sig figs, you're almost always, 99% of the time, going to be just fine. Okay? So just a little hint there for those of you that actually do have to take my quizzes and exams. Use 3 sig figs except for these kinds of problems. Okay. Now, what about when we're using numbers, we will very often have something else that goes along with those numbers. Let me give you an example. Let's imagine that you want to make a measurement, maybe the width of a room or something like that, and you measure it and you come up with a value of, let's say, 5 meters. Well, this quantity, the meters, that goes along with the numerical part is what we call the unit. Almost always, there are some exceptions, but almost always, any time that you have a numerical part, you have to have a unit that goes along with it. So 5 meters. If I were to say, oh, this room is 5 wide. Well, what does that mean? 5 what? Is it 5 inches? Is it 5 feet? 5 meters? 5 kilometers? You have to have some unit to go along with it. An example that I like to use in my class is if you were to go to a restaurant or something like that, one of those restaurants that has hamburgers and french fries and things like that. And you go up to the counter and the person at the counter says, hello, how can I help you? And you say, oh, I would like 5, please. I mean, what? What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. The person at the counter would have no idea what you're talking about. Are you talking about 5 hamburgers or 5 orders of french fries or 5 drinks or what? You have to have some word that goes along with the number to say what kind of quantity you're talking about. In this case, if we're talking about a distance, we need some unit of distance. Meters, kilometers, inches, whatever. Now, typically in this course, we will be using what's called the SI system of units, which stands for the Système International, sometimes referred to as the metric system, but it's a particular part of the metric system where we'll base all of our units, for the most part, on 3 fundamental units: a unit of length, and the basic unit of length that we'll use is the meter, a unit of, I'm actually putting these in a particular order, a unit of mass, and the fundamental unit that we will use in the SI system is the kilogram, and a unit of time, and the unit that we'll use is the second. Almost all of the units that we used in Physics 1111, and almost all of the units, actually we're going to have to introduce one more fundamental unit that we'll introduce very, very soon in the next lecture. All the units are combinations of these 3. This is sometimes referred to as the MKS system for meters, kilograms, and seconds. Also the SI system, so I'll use those interchangeably, the SI system or the MKS system. There is another metric system that is often used by astronomers, and this is kind of an interesting historical result, and I'm not really sure why this happened. I should probably do some reading on this. But physicists tend to use the MKS system. Astronomers tend to use what's called the CGS system. The CGS. CGS stands for centimeters, grams, and seconds. So for some reason, they use combinations of units with centimeters, grams, and seconds. And just like there are combinations of units like a unit of force, the Newton, which is a kilogram meter per second squared, there are other units in the CGS system. So a unit of force would be a gram centimeter per second squared. That's actually called a dyne. Unit of energy, the joule. The unit of energy in the CGS is called the erg. So there are different units that can be used. I don't know why this historical difference developed, but anyways, we'll be using the SI, the MKS system. And I want to emphasize that any time you write a unit for a quantity, always make sure it is in a form of that standard unit for that quantity. So, for example, if you want to talk about a force, 5, what are the units of force? Newtons. Do not write the unit as a kilogram meter per second squared. Always write that standard unit in the form of a Newton. Now, if it's a very small force, you could write as a millinewton or a micronewton or a nanonewton. If it's a very large force, you could write it as a kilonewton, a meganewton, something like that. But typically, you want to make sure that it's always in some form of a Newton if you're talking about a force. Joules for energy or work or something like that. So always make sure use the appropriate unit, standard unit for a particular quantity. Okay. Now, if you're if you don't know what a Newton is, that's something that we covered a lot in Physics 1111. So you might want to go back and make sure that you understand all those units that we already covered in 1111. Units can be treated just like algebraic quantities. So if you have something like 5 meters plus 3 meters, this is kind of like 5x plus 3x. What's 5x plus 3x? Well, it's 8x. 5 meters plus 3 meters is 8 meters. So units are treated very much like algebraic quantities. They can be added together. They can be multiplied. For example, let's say 5.0 meters per second times 3.0 seconds. So we've got seconds in the denominator, seconds in the numerator. They cancel out. 5 times 3, well, I wrote these with 2 sig figs so that I can say 15. And what units do we have left? Meters. So the units very much like algebraic quantities. If you had x over y times y, well, the y's cancel and you end up with x. So algebraic quantities treated very much like, units treated very much like algebraic quantities. Likewise, you cannot add numbers directly if they do not have the same units. So 5 meters plus 3 kilometers, that does not equal 8 something. You've got to convert one unit to the other in order to add the quantities together. Okay, now, then, very quickly, how do we convert numbers? We use a conversion factor. How do we make a conversion factor? Well, we start with an equality. So, for example, with kilometers, we know that 1 kilometer equals 1,000 meters. So, what is 1,000 meters divided by 1 kilometer? Well, if we have an equal value in the top and the bottom, in the numerator and the denominator, that equals 1. All conversion factors should equal 1. And we know if you multiply something by 1, you don't change the value. So, what is 3 kilometers? If we wanted to convert that to meters, multiplied by 1,000 meters divided by 1 kilometer, we are taking this value and multiplying it by 1. So we're not changing the value. We're not changing the actual distance. But we notice kilometers cancel. 3 times 1,000, that is 3,000 meters. So we have converted 3 kilometers to 3,000 meters. Those are equivalent distances, but they have different units. We're not saying that 3 is the same as 3,000. We're saying that 3 kilometers is the same as 3,000 meters. Okay, very, very good. Now, this is an example of where we're actually talking about exact values. This equality, 1 kilometer equals 1,000 meters, that is a definition. Sometimes definitions are actually written with 3 lines in the equal sign. That's a definition. And that means that these values are exact values. So that we could think of this 1 as 1.00000000000, as many zeros as we want. And that 1,000, we could think of that as 1,000.000000000, again, with as many significant figures as we want. The bottom line is that when you are using exact values, you don't need to worry about how many sig figs they have written with them. So if this were really, let's say, 5.32176 kilometers, and we wanted to convert this to meters, don't worry about how many sig figs you have written in your conversion factor if you know that this is a definition. All you have to do is worry about how many sig figs we have over here. So we take 5.32176 times 1,000 and we get 5, 3, 2, 1, point, whoops, 3, 2, 1.76 meters. We have 6 sig figs over here. We have 6 sig figs over here. We ended up just moving the decimal point 3 places. So when you have an exact value, and there's some other places where exact values will come in, we'll talk about those later. When you have an exact value, you don't need to worry about how many are actually shown in the definition. If you just kind of keep in mind that's a definition, it's got as many sig figs as we want. Okay, very, very good. Now, there's one more area that we need to talk about, we need to go over a little bit, and those are vectors. Some quantities are not just values like this, but they have a direction associated with them. For example, if I were to tell you, I'm going to move 1 meter, do you know what I'm going to do? Well, no, because I could move 1 meter this way, I could move 1 meter this way, I might jump up in the air 1 meter, actually that would be very hard for me to do, that would be a big jump. I could burrow down into a hole 1 meter down. So if I were to say that I was going to move 1 meter, to really know what I was going to do, you'd have to know what direction I was going to be moving. Quantities like that we call vectors. So a vector is a quantity with 2 parts, 2 properties to it. It has a size, which we refer to as the magnitude of the vector, and the direction. So I will refer to this often. Vectors have magnitude and direction. So let's take a look at how we would describe a quantity with a magnitude and direction.